Help! My mom's dying! A child's scream pierces the storm. Rain lashes Chicago's Wabash Bridge. Lucy Bell, 5, drenched, shivering, blocks Henry Wallace's Bentley. The CEO, 32, eyes sharp, suit soaked, steps into chaos. A rusted van looms nearby. Lucy's tiny hand clutches his card. "She's in there," she sobs. Henry opens the trunk, heart-stopping. Scarlet Hayes, 28, mud-streaked, lies crumpled, barely breathing. His MIT crush, who vanished 7 years ago, is now found. He lifts her, frail, unconscious, into his car's shelter. Rain pounds as he calls 911. Who betrayed Scarlet? Why now, this night? Subscribe to catch every twist. Share where you're listening. What time? Will Henry uncover the truth? Can love survive such darkness? Stay for a tale of redemption. Your guess. What's next for them? Rain hammered Chicago's Wabash Bridge, a relentless curtain blurring the city's neon glow. Wind howled, rattling the Bentley's frame as Henry Wallace gripped the wheel, his gray eyes scanning the dark. The storm's fury matched the churn in his chest. Another late night, another deal sealed at Novatech. His navy suit clung, soaked from a dash through the downpour. Dark hair plastered to his brow. At 32, he carried the weight of a tech empire. But tonight, something heavier loomed. A shadow darted into the road. Tires screeched as Henry slammed the brakes, heart lurching. A girl, no more than 5, stood frozen in his headlights. Her red coat, tattered and sodden, flapped wildly. Blonde hair stuck to her pale cheeks, green eyes wide with terror. "Help! My mom's dying!" she screamed, voice piercing the gale. Henry flung the door open, rain stinging his face. "Where is she?" he shouted, crouching to her level. The girl, Lucy Bell, she'd called herself, trembled, clutching a crumpled Novatech ID card with his name. Her tiny fingers, icy and shaking, grabbed his sleeve. "This way!" she cried, pulling him toward a vacant lot beyond the bridge. Rain blurred his vision, but her urgency drove him forward. Mud sucked at his polished shoes, the city's pulse fading behind the storm's roar. Lucy's coat flashed like a beacon, guiding him to a rusted van, half hidden in shadows, its frame quivering faintly. "She's in there!" Lucy pointed, voice breaking. Henry's pulse raced as he approached the van, its rear door streaked with grime. The trunk latch was cold, slick under his fingers. He yanked it open, rain drumming his back, and froze. A woman lay crumpled inside, her body curled tight, as if shielding herself from the world. Mud smeared her torn white blouse. Blonde hair tangled across a bruised face. Her lips, pale and parted, barely moved with shallow breaths. Scarlet Hayes. The name hit like lightning. 7 years ago, she'd been his world at MIT. Her sharp wit, her laugh, those green eyes that lit up during late-night coding sessions. Scarlet, always in a blue sweater, is challenging his algorithms with a grin. She'd vanished after their junior year. No trace, no goodbye. Rumors whispered of a breakdown, a dropout. Henry had buried the ache, but now here she was, broken, barely alive. "Scarlet," he whispered, voice cracking. "Is she okay?" Lucy's small voice trembled, her hand clutching his. Henry knelt, checking Scarlet's pulse. Faint, erratic, but there. Her skin was clammy, her frame impossibly light. "She's alive," he said, more to himself than Lucy. Rain pelted the van, urgency snapping him into action. He slid his arms beneath Scarlet, lifting her from the trunk. Her head lolled against his chest, mud smearing his suit. She weighed almost nothing, a ghost of the vibrant woman he'd known. "Stay close," he told Lucy, shielding her with his jacket as he carried Scarlet to the Bentley. The girl's footsteps splashed behind, her red coat a flicker in the storm. Henry laid Scarlet across the back seat, her blonde hair spilling over the leather. Rain dripped from his face onto hers, mingling with the dirt. He grabbed his phone, dialing 911. "Emergency, Wabash Bridge. Woman unconscious, possible trauma. Send an ambulance now." Lucy climbed in, huddling beside her mother, green eyes fixed on Scarlet's still face. She kept your card, Lucy whispered, holding up the worn ID. Henry's throat tightened. The photo on the card, him at 25, cocky grin, just hired at Novatech, felt like a lifetime ago. Why had Scarlett kept it? What had she endured? You're safe now, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from Scarlett's brow. Her eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Headlights cut through the rain as sirens wailed in the distance. Henry glanced at Lucy, her small hand gripping Scarlett's. What's your name again? He asked, voice steady despite the chaos. Lucy Bell, she murmured, eyes never leaving her mother. She said you'd help. His chest ached. Scarlett, the girl who'd coded dreams with him, now lay broken, and this child, her daughter, trusted him. Why him? The ambulance's red lights flashed closer, piercing the storm. Henry stepped out, waving them down, rain soaking his shirt. Paramedics rushed forward, their voices sharp over the wind. Female, late 20s, unconscious, signs of trauma, Henry reported, stepping aside as they lifted Scarlett onto a stretcher. Lucy clung to his hand, her boop baby dangling from her other arm, soaked and muddy. Don't leave her, she pleaded. I won't, Henry promised, squeezing her hand. The paramedics worked swiftly, securing Scarlett, their equipment clattering in the downpour. Henry lifted Lucy, shielding her from the rain as they followed the stretcher. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and the vehicle sped toward Mercy Hospital. Henry's Bentley trailed, wipers battling the deluge. His mind raced. Scarlett's disappearance, the ID card, Lucy's desperate cry. Something dark lay beneath us. As the city blurred past, Henry glanced at Lucy in the passenger seat, her red coat dripping onto the floor. How'd you find me? He asked gently. She clutched the book bay, voice small. Mom said Hank would save us. Hank, the nickname Scarlett used in quiet MIT nights, whispering over coffee and code. His heart twisted. 7 years and she'd held on to him. But who had done this to her? And why? The hospital loomed ahead, its white lights cutting through the rain. Henry carried Lucy inside, her weight a reminder of the stakes. Scarlett's face, bruised and fragile, haunted him. This wasn't just a rescue, it was a reckoning. Someone had torn her from his life, and he'd find out who. The storm outside raged, but inside Henry, a fiercer one brewed. He'd protect them, no matter the cost. Henry Wallace's shoes squeaked on the hospital's linoleum, each step echoing the storm still raging in his mind. He held Lucy Bell close, her small frame trembling against his chest, her red coat dripping rain onto the sterile floor. The 5-year-old's green eyes, wide and unblinking, fixed on the double doors where paramedics had whisked Scarlett Hayes moments ago. Her boot baby, soaked and sagging, dangled from her hand, its button eyes staring blankly. Henry's gray gaze darted to the trauma ward's glow, where Scarlett, his Scarlett, fought for life. The name Hank, whispered by Lucy, burned in his ears, a relic of MIT nights when Scarlett's laughter lit up his world. Will she wake up? Lucy's voice quavered, barely audible over the hospital's hum. Henry knelt, setting her down gently, his navy suit still damp, clinging to his broad shoulders. She's strong, he said, voice steady despite the knot in his throat. They're helping her now. Lucy clutched her doll tighter, blonde curls matted against her pale cheek. Her trust in him, a stranger until tonight, cut deeper than the rain. The waiting room smelled of antiseptic and stale coffee. Nurses bustled past, their clipped voices blending with beeping monitors. Henry guided Lucy to a plastic chair, her tiny sneakers dangling above the floor. He pulled his jacket off, draping it over her like a blanket. Stay here, he told her softly. I'll check on your mom. Her nod was small, but her eyes held a fierce hope that pinned him in place. At the nurse's station, Henry's presence drew glances. Novatech's CEO, disheveled in a rain-soaked shirt, hair mussed, was out of place amid the chaos. Scarlett Hayes, he said, voice low, urgent. Status? The nurse, graying and stern, scanned her screen. Critical but stable. She's in the ICU. Possible dehydration, trauma. We're running tests. Henry's jaw tightened. Trauma. The word conjured images of Scarlett's bruised face, her fragile form in that trunk. Can I see her? He pressed. Not yet, the nurse replied. Family only. He glanced at Lucy, now tracing patterns on her doll's frayed dress. I'm close enough, he said, the lie tasting bitter. The nurse raised an eyebrow but nodded. Soon, we'll update you. Henry returned to Lucy, sitting beside her, his tall frame dwarfing the chair. Her hand found his, small and cold. You knew, Mom? She asked, voice a whisper. Henry's mind flashed to MIT, 7 years back. Scarlett, 21, hair golden under library lights, her blue sweater soft against his arm as they debugged code until dawn. She'd called him Hank, teasing his seriousness, her green eyes sparking with ideas. He'd loved her quietly, never brave enough to say it. Then she was gone. No note, no trace. He'd buried the pain under boardrooms and deals. Yeah, he said softly. We were friends. Long ago. Lucy tilted her head, studying him. She kept your card. Said Hank was good. Henry's chest ached. The Novatech ID crumpled in her tiny hand was a lifeline Scarlett had clung to. Why? What had she endured? He brushed a damp curl from Lucy's face. Tell me about her, he said, needing to understand. She sang to me, Lucy murmured, clutching the doll. Even when she was tired. Said you'd find us. Her words landed like stones. Scarlett, trapped somewhere unimaginable, had woven him into her hope. Henry's eyes stung, but he blinked it away. What else? He asked gently. Lucy's lip trembled. Bad people. They locked her up, hurt her. Her voice broke, and she buried her face in the doll. Henry's fists clenched, nails biting his palms. Locked up, hurt. The thought of Scarlett, brilliant, fierce Scarlett, caged like an animal, ignited a fury he hadn't known he could feel. You're safe now, he said, pulling Lucy close. Her small body relaxed against him, but her words echoed. Bad people. Who? The question gnawed, sharp and relentless. A doctor approached, white coat crisp, face grim. Mr. Wallace? Henry stood, heart pounding. She's conscious, the doctor said. Weak, malnourished, signs of prolonged confinement. She's asking for Lucy. Henry nodded, lifting the girl, her doll pressed between them. They followed the doctor down a fluorescent hall, each step heavier than the last. Scarlett, alive, asking for her daughter. His mind raced. 7 years, a child, his name on her lips. The ICU room was stark, monitors beeping softly. Scarlett lay under thin sheets, her blonde hair fanned across the pillow, bruised skin stark against the white. Her green eyes, dull but open, found Lucy. Baby, she rasped, voice barely a breath. Lucy scrambled onto the bed, curling into her mother's side, doll forgotten. Henry stood frozen, his throat tight. Scarlett's gaze met his, recognition flickering. Hank, she whispered, a tear tracing her cheek. You're here, Henry said, voice rough. He stepped closer, hand hovering, unsure. Her fingers, thin and trembling, reached for his. You found us, she said, voice breaking. The weight of those words, years of loss, pain, survival, hung between them. Henry squeezed her hand, grounding himself. I'm not going anywhere, he promised, though questions burned. Where had she been? Who had done this? A nurse entered, checking monitors. She needs rest, she said firmly. Henry nodded, but Scarlett's grip tightened. Lucy, she murmured, eyes pleading. She stays, Henry said, voice unwavering. The nurse relented and Lucy nestled closer, her blonde curls blending with Scarlett's. Henry sat beside them, his suit jacket still draped over Lucy's shoulders. The hospital's hum faded, leaving only their breathing. Outside, the storm raged on, rain battering the windows. Henry's mind churned. Scarlett's bruises, Lucy's words, that ID card. Someone had torn her from his life, and Lucy's bad people hinted at something darker. His father, Charles Wallace, flashed in his thoughts. Novatech's shadow, a man of secrets. Was it possible? Henry pushed the thought down, but it lingered, a splinter in his mind. He looked at Scarlett, her face etched with pain, and Lucy clinging to hope. Whatever truth lay ahead, he'd face it, for them. Henry Wallace's hand lingered on Scarlet Hayes's, her fingers frail but warm against his palm. The ICU's sterile hum cocooned them, monitors pulsing like a heartbeat in the dim light. Lucy Bell, curled against her mother's side, clutched her butt-bae vi, its muddy fabric a silent witness to their ordeal. Scarlett's green eyes, clouded with pain, held Henry's gaze, her whispered "Hank" still echoing in his chest. At 32, he'd built Novatech into a tech empire, but nothing prepared him for this. Scarlett, alive, and Lucy, the child who'd called him from the storm. His damp shirt clung to his shoulders, the weight of their reunion heavier than the rain-soaked night. Lucy's soft snores broke the silence, her blonde curls spilling across Scarlett's hospital gown. Henry leaned closer, voice low. "How'd you keep my card?" he asked, the Novatech ID flashing in his mind. His younger self, grinning, unaware of the future. Scarlett's lips trembled, her voice a rasp. "It was you," she said. "Always you." He frowned, heart stuttering. "Me?" The word felt inadequate, a single syllable against 7 years of absence. Scarlett's gaze drifted, as if seeing through time. "They took everything," she whispered, "but I kept it. Your name, Hank." Her fingers tightened, nails biting his skin. Henry's throat burned. At MIT, she'd teased him with that nickname, her laughter bright as they coded side by side, her blue sweater brushing his arm. She'd been his unspoken dream, lost without warning. Now her words carved a wound he hadn't known still bled. "What happened?" He pressed gently, afraid to push too hard. Scarlett's eyes flicked to Lucy, then back. "Bad men," she said, voice cracking. "They locked me away, moved me. Cities, cellars." Her breath hitched, a tear tracing her bruised cheek. "I told Lucy about you. Said you'd come." Henry's chest tightened, rage simmering beneath his calm. Locked away. The image of Scarlett, vibrant, brilliant Scarlett, caged in darkness, was unbearable. He glanced at Lucy, her small hand clutching the doll's frayed arm. "Who were they?" he asked, voice steady but sharp. Scarlett shook her head, eyes haunted. "I heard names. Whispers. Mr. Wallace." The name landed like a blade. Henry froze, his father's face flashing. Charles Wallace, silver-haired, commanding, Novatech's shadow patriarch. No, it couldn't be. But doubt coiled, cold and sharp. "My father?" he said, barely a whisper. Scarlett's gaze faltered. "I don't know. Just his name." Her voice broke, and she looked away, shame flickering in her eyes. Henry's mind raced, memories of Charles's ruthless control surfacing. Boardroom deals, hushed calls, a man who bent the world to his will. Could he have done this? Henry pushed the thought down, focusing on Scarlett. "You're safe now," he said, squeezing her hand. "Both of you." Lucy stirred, green eyes blinking open. "Mom," she mumbled, voice sleepy. Scarlett smiled faintly, stroking her daughter's hair. "I'm here, baby." A nurse entered, clipboard in hand, her shoes squeaking softly. "Visiting hours are ending," she said, tone firm but kind. Henry stood, his 6-foot frame towering but unsteady. "Can she stay?" he asked, nodding to Lucy. The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Just tonight." Henry met Scarlett's eyes, a silent promise passing between them. "I'll be back," he said, voice low. She nodded, her grip loosening but reluctant. He stepped into the hall, the fluorescent lights harsh against his damp hair. His phone buzzed. Novatech alerts, board messages, a world he'd left behind in the rain. He ignored them, pacing the corridor. Lucy's words replaying, "Bad people, hurt her." Scarlett's mention of Mr. Wallace gnawed at him, a splinter in his trust. He needed answers, but first he needed Scarlett stable, Lucy safe. He glanced through the ICU window, where Lucy nestled against her mother, the bupe vi tucked under her arm. That doll, like Scarlett's ID card, was a tether to their survival. Henry's thoughts drifted to MIT 2018. Scarlett, 21, her green eyes sparking as she debugged code, her fingers flying over keys. They'd spent nights in the lab, coffee cups piling up, her blue sweater a constant. "Hank, you're too serious," she'd teased, her laugh warming the cold room. He loved her then, silently, afraid to ruin their friendship. When she vanished, he'd searched. Calls, emails, nothing. The police called it a dropout case. He'd mourned her in silence, burying hope under work. Now she was here, broken but breathing. He stopped pacing, leaning against the wall. The ID card. Why had Scarlett kept it? A nurse passed, offering a sympathetic glance. "You okay, sir?" she asked. Henry nodded, forcing a smile. "Just processing." She moved on and he pulled out his phone, opening Novatech's secure app. His fingers hovered over the login. If Charles was involved, there'd be traces, data, transactions, something. His tech instincts kicked in, but his heart held him back. Scarlett needed him here, not chasing shadows. Lucy's voice echoed in his mind. "She said you'd find us." He looked back at the ICU, Scarlett's pale face framed by monitors. Her trust in him, after all these years, was a weight he couldn't shake. He'd failed her once, letting her slip away. Not again. The name Mr. Wallace lingered, a dark thread he'd pull soon. For now, he'd stay close, guarding the fragile family he'd found in the storm. A janitor's mop swished nearby, the hospital's rhythm unbroken. Henry sank into a chair outside the room, his damp shirt cold against his skin. Lucy's boot bay vi peeked from the bed, a symbol of innocence amid horror. Scarlett's words, sellers, bad men, stirred a fire in him. Whoever did this would answer. He closed his eyes, the rain's echo still in his ears, and vowed to unravel the truth no matter where it led. Henry Wallace slumped in the hospital chair, the ICU's faint beeps threading through his thoughts. Scarlett Hayes whispered, "Mr. Wallace," burned like a brand, her frail hands still warm in his memory. Lucy Bell slept against her mother, blonde curls tangled, her boot bay vi tucked under her arm. Henry's gray eyes shadowed with doubt, fixed on the glass separating him from them. The name, his father's name, echoed, a splinter in his trust. At 32, he'd navigated Novatech's cutthroat world, but this betrayal cut deeper than any boardroom fight. His damp shirt clung to his chest, a reminder of the storm that had brought them here. He stood, pacing the fluorescent-lit hall, his footsteps sharp against the linoleum. Scarlett's words, bad men, sellers, Mr. Wallace, churned in his mind. Charles Wallace, 65, silver-haired, a titan who'd shaped Novatech's empire with an iron grip. Could he have orchestrated Scarlett's suffering? Henry's jaw clenched, the idea unthinkable yet persistent. He needed proof, not suspicion. His phone buzzed, Novatech alerts, urgent emails. But he silenced it. Answers lie elsewhere. The ICU door clicked open, and a nurse gestured him inside. Scarlett's green eyes, clearer now, met his. She lay propped up, her blonde hair tied loosely, hospital gown stark against her bruised skin. Lucy stirred, clutching her doll, but didn't wake. "Hank!" Scarlett rasped, voice stronger but raw. "You stayed." Henry nodded, sitting beside her, his tall frame hunched. "Always," he said, voice low. Her gaze softened, but fear lingered, a shadow in her eyes. "What did you mean, Mr. Wallace?" he asked, keeping his tone gentle. Scarlett's fingers tightened on the sheet, knuckles white. "They spoke his name," she said, voice trembling. "In the dark, cellars, warehouses, Eastern Europe. They moved me like cargo." Her breath hitched, eyes distant. "I heard it, Mr. Wallace. Payments, deals." Henry's heart sank, a cold weight settling. His father's voice, smooth and commanding, flashed in his mind. Late-night calls, cryptic orders. "You're sure?" he pressed, hating himself for it. Scarlett nodded, tears welling. "I clung to your card," she said. "Your name kept me alive." The Novatech ID, crumpled by Lucy's small hand, surfaced in his thoughts. Henry's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, guilt clawing at him. He'd failed her, lost in his corporate climb while she suffered. Scarlett shook her head. "You found us," she said, voice breaking. "That's enough," Lucy murmured in her sleep, her doll slipping to the floor. Henry picked it up, its muddy fabric soft under his fingers, and tucked it beside her. "Tell me more," he said, eyes on Scarlett. She hesitated, then spoke, voice low. "They numbered us, sold us, women, children. I was nothing." Her tears fell, silent but heavy. "But Lucy, she was my light." Henry's chest ached, rage simmering. Sold. The word was a blade, cutting through his restraint. He stood, pacing to the window, rain still streaking the glass. "I'll find them," he said, voice hard. "Whoever did this." Scarlett's gaze followed him, weary but trusting. "Be careful," she whispered. "They're powerful." The warning chilled him, but he nodded. "I'm not afraid," he lied, his mind already racing to Novatech's servers. Back in the hall, Henry pulled out his phone, fingers trembling as he logged into Novatech's secure database. His tech instincts, honed at MIT, kicked in. If Charles was involved, there'd be traces, transactions, emails, something. He accessed financial records, scrolling through years of data. His breath caught, millions transferred to obscure Eastern European charities, dated 7 years back, when Scarlett vanished. Shell organizations, coded names, his father's signature, digital, unmistakable, on every transfer. Henry's pulse pounded. He needed more. He remembered Charles's private office at Novatech, a fortress of secrets, rarely opened. If answers lay anywhere, it was there. He slipped into a stairwell, avoiding prying eyes, and called his assistant, Mia. "I need access to Charles's office," he said, voice low. "Tonight." Mia hesitated. "It's locked, sir. Biometric." Henry's jaw tightened. "Override it," he said. "Use my clearance." The hospital's hum faded as he returned to Scarlett's room, his resolve hardening. She watched him, green eyes searching. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice soft but sharp. Henry knelt beside her, meeting her gaze. "Finding the truth," he said. "For you. For Lucy." She nodded, a flicker of strength in her eyes. "Don't lose yourself," she whispered. Lucy stirred, clutching her doll, and Henry brushed her curls gently. He stepped out, the stairwell's cold air hitting him. His phone buzzed again. Mia confirming access. Henry's mind raced to the office, but a glint caught his eye. In his pocket, a silver bracelet found in a forgotten jacket from MIT days. He'd given it to Scarlett at graduation, her initial S engraved on its surface. His fingers traced the metal, heart pounding. Had she lost it, or had someone taken it? The question burned, tying him to her past. The hospital's fluorescent glow felt suffocating. Henry glanced back at Scarlett and Lucy, their fragile forms etched in his mind. Scarlett's words, "Mr. Wallace, payments, deals," were a map to a truth he dreaded. Charles's empire, built on secrets, loomed larger than ever. Henry's gray eyes hardened. He'd break into that office, dig through every file, every code. The bracelet, Scarlett's survival, Lucy's trust. They demanded answers. The storm outside had calmed, but inside him a fiercer one brewed, ready to tear down the lies. Henry Wallace's fingers tightened around the silver bracelet, its engraved S glinting under the hospital's harsh lights. Scarlett Hayes's words, "Mr. Wallace, payments, deals," pulsed in his mind, a dark rhythm driving him forward. Lucy Bell's soft breathing, mingled with the ICU's steady beeps, anchored him to the promise he'd made. He'd left Scarlett and her daughter safe, but safety was fleeting. The truth buried in his father's secrets demanded action. His gray eyes, sharp with resolve, flicked to his phone. Mia's message glowed. Office access granted. Henry slipped the bracelet into his pocket, its weight a silent vow. At 32, he'd built Novatech's empire, but tonight he'd tear into its shadows. The stairwell's chill bit at his damp shirt as he left Mercy Hospital, the city's pulse muted beyond the glass doors. Chicago's skyline loomed, its lights blurred by lingering rain. Henry's Bentley roared to life, cutting through the night toward Novatech's headquarters. The tower's glass facade gleamed, a monument to his father's legacy. Charles Wallace, 65, silver-haired, had ruled it with a cold hand, his voice still echoing in Henry's mind. Control is everything. Now that control felt like a cage. Inside, the lobby was silent, security drones humming faintly. Henry's badge bypassed the scanners, his footsteps sharp on marble. The elevator climbed to the top floor, where Charles's private office waited, a fortress of secrets. The biometric lock blinked red, but Mia's override code, hacked at his insistence, clicked it green. The door hissed open, revealing a room of sleek monitors and polished wood, smelling of leather and power. Henry's heart pounded. This was betrayal, but necessity drove him. He sat at the desk, its surface bare except for a single photo. Charles, stern, beside a younger Henry, both in suits. He shoved it aside, booting the private server. Lines of code flickered, a language he and Scarlett had mastered at MIT. His fingers flew, bypassing firewalls, digging into financial archives. Transactions scrolled, millions funneled to Eastern European charities, dated 7 years back, when Scarlett vanished. Shell companies, coded aliases, all signed digitally by Charles Wallace. Henry's breath caught, rage rising like bile. He searched deeper, uncovering encrypted emails. One, dated 2018, read, "Handle the Hayes issue. She knows too much." The name hit like a punch. Scarlett. His father had known her, targeted her. Henry's vision narrowed, the screen's glow burning his eyes. Another file revealed a cyber fraud scheme. Novatech's proprietary code sold to foreign entities. Scarlett, with her knack for spotting flaws, must have stumbled onto it at MIT. Charles had silenced her, not with death, but with a living hell. Henry's hand shook as he opened the desk drawer. Inside, a locked metal box. He pried it open, revealing a silver bracelet. Scarlett's, identical to the one in his pocket, its S gleaming. His stomach churned. Charles had kept it, a trophy of his cruelty. Henry clutched both bracelets, their cold metal searing his palm. Proof, undeniable, of his father's hand in Scarlett's suffering. The room felt smaller, the air thick with betrayal. His phone buzzed. Mia, warning of security patrols. Henry downloaded the files, wiped his traces, and stood. The photo of him and Charles stared back, a lie frozen in time. He turned it face down, heart racing. He needed to confront Charles, but not here. Not yet. Scarlett and Lucy deserved answers first. He slipped out, the office ceiling shut behind him, its secrets now his weapon. The drive to his penthouse was a blur, rain-slicked streets mirroring his thoughts. Charles's face, cold, calculating, haunted him. At home, Henry stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago's lights sprawling below. He set the bracelets on the table, their twin engravings catching the city's glow. Scarlett's voice echoed. They moved me like cargo. His father's empire, built on innovation, hid a darker trade. Human lives bartered for profit. He poured a whiskey, the burn steadying his nerves. His mind flashed to Scarlett in the ICU, her green eyes fragile but fierce, and Lucy, clutching her boop babe eye, trusting him. Hank would save us, she'd said. Henry's guilt surged. He'd climbed Novatech's ranks while Scarlett suffered, her faith in him unbroken. The bracelets gleamed, a call to action. He'd face Charles, but first he'd ensure Scarlett's strength returned. His phone lit up. A hospital update. Scarlett was stable, responding to fluids. Lucy was sleeping beside her. Henry exhaled, relief fleeting. He needed to see them, to ground himself before the storm ahead. The drive back to Mercy was swift, the city's hum a distant echo. In the ICU, Scarlett's face was less pale, her blonde hair tucked behind her ear. Lucy slept, her doll nestled close, its muddy fabric a stark contrast to the white sheets. "Hank," Scarlett whispered, seeing him. Her voice, though weak, held a spark. Henry sat, taking her hand. "You're getting stronger," he said, forcing a smile. Her eyes searched his, sensing his turmoil. "What did you find?" she asked, voice soft but sharp. Henry hesitated, the bracelets heavy in his pocket. "Enough," he said, voice low. "I'll fix this." Scarlett nodded, trust flickering in her gaze. "For Lucy," she said. Henry looked at the girl, her blonde curls soft in sleep. The bracelets, the files, Charles's name. They pointed to a truth he couldn't unsee. His father's empire was rotten, and Scarlett had paid the price. Henry's gray eyes hardened. He'd confront Charles, tear down the lies. for Scarlett, for Lucy, for the man he should have been 7 years ago. The hospital's glow felt like a battlefield, and Henry was ready to fight. Henry Wallace's promise to Scarlett Hayes lingered in the air, a vow etched in the ICU's sterile glow. The silver bracelets, one from his pocket, one from his father's safe, weighed heavy as he sat by her bed. Lucy Bell nestled against her mother. Scarlett's green eyes, stronger now, held a flicker of hope, her blonde hair loosely tied, hospital gown replaced by a soft white sweater. Lucy's boot vie lay tucked in her arms, its muddy fabric a quiet reminder of the storm they'd survived. Henry's gray gaze softened, his damp shirt traded for a gray t-shirt, but the fire of Charles's betrayal burned within. At 32, he'd faced boardroom battles, but this fight, for Scarlett, for Lucy, was personal. The hospital's hum faded as Henry drove them to a lake house outside Chicago, Lake Michigan's waters shimmering under a post-storm sky. The wooden cabin, its cedar scent warm, offered refuge from the city's chaos. Scarlett sat by the window, her frail frame wrapped in a blanket, sketching waves on a notepad. Lucy, in a green dress with a pink ribbon in her blonde curls, colored beside her, adding suns to the page. Henry stirred a pot of tomato soup, its warmth filling the air, his movements deliberate, grounding. "You didn't have to," Scarlett said, her voice soft but clear, eyes on her sketch. Henry glanced over, ladle pausing. "I wanted to," he replied, voice low. "You both need peace." Lucy looked up, green eyes bright. "It's pretty here," she said, holding her doll. Henry smiled, setting bowls on the table. The simplicity, soup, sketches, a child's voice, felt like a balm after the hospital's cold grip. Scarlett's pencil paused, her gaze distant. "I never thought I'd see this," she said, voice trembling. "Light. Freedom." Henry sat across from her, his heart aching. Her bruises were fading, but the shadows in her eyes remained. "You're here now," he said, reaching for her hand. Her fingers, still thin, met his, a quiet strength in their touch. Lucy giggled, adding a lopsided sun to her drawing, its rays sprawling across the page. "I kept your card," Scarlett said, eyes meeting his. "In the dark, it was my anchor." Henry's throat tightened, the Novatech ID flashing in his mind. His face, younger, hopeful. "Why me?" he asked, voice rough. Scarlett's gaze softened, a tear tracing her cheek. "You were my safe place," she said. "At MIT, you saw me." Henry's chest constricted, memories flooding back. Late nights coding, her blue sweater, her laugh. He'd loved her silently, too afraid to speak. Lucy climbed into Scarlett's lap, her doll dangling. "Mom sang about you," she said, voice small. "Said Hank would find us." Henry's breath caught. Scarlett nodded, her hand stroking Lucy's curls. "I told her stories," she said, "about you, to keep her brave." Henry leaned closer, his gray eyes searching. "Stories?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Scarlett's lips trembled. "About a coder who never gave up," she said, "who built things that mattered." Her voice broke, and she looked at Lucy, then back at Henry. "I need to tell you something." Her pause was heavy, the air thick with unspoken truths. "Lucy, she's yours." The words landed like a tide, washing over him. Henry froze, his gaze flicking to Lucy. Her green eyes, her blonde curls, a mirror of Scarlett's, and maybe his. "Mine," he whispered, heart pounding. Scarlett nodded, tears spilling. "I found out. There," she said, voice cracking. "In the cellars. They took everything, but not her." Henry's eyes stung, his hand reaching for Lucy. The girl looked up, smiling, unaware of the weight. "You're my dad?" she asked, voice curious. Henry swallowed, nodding. "Yeah, kiddo," he said, voice rough. "I am." He pulled Lucy into his arms, her small frame warm against his chest. The bracelets in his pocket felt heavier, their S engravings a link to Scarlett's survival. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, voice soft but urgent. Scarlett's gaze dropped. "I tried," she said, "before they took me. I was scared." Her tears fell, silent but raw. Henry reached for her hand, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "You're not alone now," he said, voice steady. The lake's gentle lapping filled the silence, a contrast to the storm that had brought them here. Henry's mind flashed to Charles, his father's cold admission, the transactions, the bracelet in his safe. Rage simmered, but Lucy's giggle as she colored grounded him. "Look, Dad," she said, holding up her sun-drenched drawing. Dad. The word was a gift, unearned but cherished. Scarlett smiled faintly, her pencil sketching waves again, each stroke steadier. Henry stood, clearing the bowls, his movements automatic. "I'll protect you both," he said, meeting Scarlett's eyes. "No matter what." She nodded, trust flickering in her gaze. "I know," she whispered. Lucy yawned, clutching her doll, and Henry carried her to a small bed, tucking her in. The cabin's warmth wrapped around them, a fragile shield against the truth he'd soon face. Outside, the lake gleamed under moonlight, its calm deceptive. Henry stepped onto the porch, the bracelets clinking in his pocket. Charles's betrayal loomed, a shadow he couldn't ignore. The transactions, the bracelet, Scarlett's suffering. They pointed to a man he'd trusted, a father who'd built an empire on lies. Henry's gray eyes hardened. He'd confront Charles, expose the rot. For Scarlett, for Lucy, for the family he'd just found. The lake's quiet held no answers, but Henry's resolve was clear. He'd fight, and he wouldn't lose them again. Henry Wallace's vow echoed in the quiet night, the lake house's warmth a fragile shield behind him. Scarlett Hayes and Lucy Bell slept inside, their presence a tether to his resolve. The silver bracelets, one etched with Scarlett's S, glinted in his pocket, a reminder of Charles's betrayal. Henry's gray eyes, sharp under Chicago's distant skyline, burned with purpose. At 32, he'd shaped Novatech's empire, but now he'd dismantle its lies. His t-shirt, still faintly damp, clung to his frame as he drove back to the city, the lake's calm fading in his rear view. Today, he'd expose his father's sins. The tech conference at Chicago's McCormick Place buzzed with energy, its glass halls aglow with LED screens. Henry stepped onto the stage, his gray button-up crisp, the silver bracelet on his wrist catching the light. Hundreds of eyes, coders, investors, reporters, watched him. Novatech's CEO, a titan in their world, but his heart was with Scarlett, her green eyes trusting, and Lucy, her blonde curls framing a hopeful smile. He gripped the podium, voice steady. "This ends today." He'd leaked the files to trusted journalists overnight, transactions, emails, proof of Charles's cyber fraud and trafficking ties. The screen behind him flashed. Novatech funds linked to Eastern European crime. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Henry's gaze was steel. "My father, Charles Wallace, orchestrated this," he said, voice cutting through the murmurs. "He hid behind charity, funding horrors. I have the evidence." A slide showed the transactions, millions funneled to shell organizations, dated when Scarlett vanished. Reporters scribbled furiously, cameras flashing. "I resign as CEO," Henry declared, the words heavy but sure. "Novatech must rebuild, transparently." The crowd stirred, shock palpable. He raised his hand, silencing them. "I'm launching Lucy's Son, a foundation to aid trafficking survivors through tech and education." His voice softened, Lucy's green eyes in his mind. "For those who've suffered, like one I know." He touched the bracelet, its weight grounding him. The room erupted. Questions, applause. But Henry stepped off, his mission clear. Backstage, Scarlett waited, her blonde hair tied high, a teal blazer sharp against her pale skin. At 28, she stood taller, her bruises fading, her strength returning. Lucy, 6 now, clung to her hand, wearing a white dress with yellow flowers, her boot baby tucked under her arm. "You did it," Scarlett said, voice steady but warm. Henry nodded, his gray eyes softening. "For you," he said, glancing at Lucy. The girl grinned, holding up a handmade sign, "Hope for All." Its wobbly letters drawn in crayon glowed with her spirit. Scarlett stepped forward, her presence commanding. "I'm presenting Code for Freedom," she said, gesturing to a demo booth. "A platform to help survivors rebuild, Jobs, skills, safety. Her green eyes sparkled, the coder from MIT shining through. Henry watched, pride swelling. She'd taken her pain, sellers, chains, years stolen, and turned it into light. "Show them," he said, voice low. Scarlett nodded, leading the way. The booth hummed with visitors, screens displaying Code for Freedom's interface. Scarlett spoke, voice clear. "This connects survivors to resources," she said, clicking through. "Training programs, secure networks." A reporter leaned in, mic extended. "Why this project?" he asked. Scarlett's gaze flicked to Henry, then Lucy. "Because I survived," she said. "For her." Lucy beamed, waving her sign, her blonde curls bouncing. The crowd murmured, moved by her resilience. Henry stood back, his bracelet glinting. Charles's face, silver-haired, cold, flashed in his mind. The leaked files had triggered investigations. FBI alerts buzzed on his phone. Charles was cornered, his empire crumbling. Henry felt no triumph, only duty. He'd protected Scarlett and Lucy, but the cost was his legacy. He glanced at them. Scarlett's steady voice, Lucy's bright laugh, and knew it was worth it. A tech exec approached, offering support for Lucy's son. "We're in," he said, shaking Henry's hand. Henry nodded, but his eyes were on Scarlett, her fingers flying over a tablet, showing a survivor's profile on the platform. "This is real," she told a coder, her voice fierce. "It saves lives." Henry's chest tightened. She'd been cargo to Charles, but now she was a force, rebuilding what was broken. Lucy tugged his sleeve, her sign wobbling. "Dad, look," she said, pointing to Scarlett. Dad. The word still caught him, a gift he hadn't earned. He knelt, brushing her curls. "She's amazing, huh?" he said, smiling. Lucy nodded, her butt-babe eye swinging. "Like you," she said, green eyes bright. Henry's throat burned, but he hugged her warmth anchoring him. Scarlett finished her demo, the crowd applauding. She joined them, her blazer slightly askew, a spark in her eyes. "They believe in it," she said, voice soft. Henry took her hand, the bracelet warm against his wrist. "They believe in you," he corrected. Scarlett smiled, a rare lightness breaking through. Lucy squeezed between them, her sign held high, and for a moment the conference's noise faded. Henry's phone buzzed. News alerts, Charles Wallace under investigation. The truth was out, but the fight wasn't over. Charles's shadow loomed, his reach vast. Henry looked at Scarlett, her strength a beacon, and Lucy, her hope unyielding. Lucy's son would grow, Code for Freedom would thrive, and he'd shield them both. The conference lights blazed, but their family, fragile yet fierce, shone brighter. Henry's resolve hardened. He'd face Charles, end this darkness, and build a world where Lucy's sun would never dim. Henry Wallace's hand clasped Scarlett Hayes's, the silver bracelet on his wrist catching the conference's fading lights. Lucy Bell squeezed between them, her handmade sign, Hope for All, wobbling in her small grip, her white dress with yellow flowers bright against the tech hall's glow. Scarlett's teal blazer gleamed, her blonde hair tied high, her green eyes fierce with purpose. At 32, Henry had shattered his father's empire. But standing here, with Scarlett and their daughter, he'd built something stronger. The crowd's applause lingered, their belief in Code for Freedom a spark in the air. Henry's gray eyes softened, Lucy's giggle grounding him. 1 year after that rain-soaked night, their fight wasn't over, but their light was undeniable. Navy Pier's Grand Hall buzzed, its glass walls framing Lake Michigan's shimmering expanse. The Tech Expo, a year after the conference, drew thousands, coders, survivors, advocates, marveling at screens showcasing Code for Freedom. Scarlett stood at the center, her voice steady, commanding. "This platform empowers survivors," she said, clicking through a demo, her blonde hair catching the spotlight. "It's jobs, safety, a future." Her green eyes met Henry's, a silent thank you passing between them. Lucy, now 6, twirled nearby, her butt-babe eye tucked in her backpack, its muddy stains faded but cherished. Henry watched from the crowd, his gray button-up crisp, the bracelet a constant on his wrist. Charles Wallace's downfall had dominated headlines. Arrested, charged with trafficking and cyber fraud. his name erased from Novatech's legacy. Henry's resignation had sparked chaos, but Lucy's sun had risen, funding tech training for survivors across Chicago. Scarlett's project, Code for Freedom, was its heart, connecting victims to resources, rebuilding lives. Henry's chest swelled, pride mixing with the ache of what they'd endured. A young woman approached Scarlett, her hands trembling as she shared her story. A survivor, now coding thanks to the platform. Scarlett listened, her touch gentle, her strength radiant. "You're not alone," she said, voice warm. The woman nodded, tears falling, and Henry's throat tightened. Scarlett, once broken in a van's trunk, now lifted others from darkness. Lucy ran over, hugging the woman's legs. "You're brave," she chirped, her blonde curls bouncing. The crowd murmured, moved by the child's light. Henry stepped closer, his hand brushing Scarlett's. "You're incredible," he said, voice low. She smiled, a rare softness breaking through. "We did this," she corrected, her fingers lacing with his. Lucy tugged his sleeve, holding up her sign, its crayon letters bold. "Dad, it's for everyone," she said, green eyes sparkling. Dad. The word still hit like a tide, filling gaps he hadn't known existed. He knelt, kissing her forehead. "You're right, kiddo." The expo's lights danced on the lake, a mirror of the storm that had brought them together. Henry's mind flashed to that night, Scarlett's frail form, Lucy's desperate cry, the rain that soaked his soul. The silver bracelets, one from Charles's safe, one from his MIT days, had tied him to their truth. Now they were a family, fragile but fierce. Charles's trial loomed, but Henry had shielded Scarlett and Lucy from the media's glare, keeping their story private, sacred. A reporter approached, mic poised. "Ms. Hayes, what kept you going?" Scarlett's gaze flicked to Henry, then Lucy. "They're my light," she said, voice steady. "Henry and Lucy." The reporter nodded, scribbling, but Henry felt the words deeper, a vow renewed. Lucy waved her sign, drawing laughs, her butt babe eye peeking from her bag. The crowd's warmth wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the cold cellar Scarlett had survived. They stepped outside, the pier's breeze cool against their skin. Lake Michigan stretched endlessly, its waves whispering peace. Henry lifted Lucy, her dress fluttering, and Scarlett leaned into him, her blazer soft against his arm. "We made it," she whispered, her green eyes bright with tears, not of pain, but healing. Henry nodded, his throat tight. "We're just starting," he said, voice firm. The expo's hum faded behind them, the city's skyline a distant glow. Henry's phone buzzed. Updates on Lucy's son, new funding, survivor stories. He ignored it, focusing on Scarlett's hand in his, Lucy's weight in his arms. The bracelets clinked softly, their S engravings a quiet promise. Charles's empire had crumbled, but their family stood tall. Scarlett's platform, Lucy's hope, Henry's resolve. They were building a world where no one would be cargo. Lucy pointed to the lake, her voice bright. "It's like Mom's drawing." Henry smiled, remembering Scarlett's wave sketches, their lines mirroring this moment. "It is," he said, meeting Scarlett's gaze. She squeezed his hand, her strength palpable. "I want to teach kids," she said, voice resolute. "Kids like Lucy, to code, to dream." Henry nodded, heart full. "Let's do it," he said, kissing her forehead. The pier's lights glowed, casting their shadows long and joined. Henry held them close, the lake's calm a testament to their survival. 1 year ago, a storm had torn them apart, then brought them together. Now they stood as three, bound by truth and love. Scarlett's voice broke the silence, soft but sure. "We're free." Henry nodded, Lucy's giggle echoing. Their story wasn't over, but its heart, forged in rain, code, and courage, would never break. Henry, Scarlett, and Lucy found their dawn. Their story, born in rain, forged in truth, touches hearts. Did their journey stir you? Did it spark hope, ignite anger, or awaken courage? Share your thoughts below. What moved you most? Where are you listening from? And when? Your voice adds to their light. Every comment, every share, keeps their fight alive. We're grateful you joined us, felt their pain, and celebrated their triumph. At Soul-Stirring Stories, we craft tales that heal, inspire, and remind us what matters. Subscribe to never miss a moment that could change your heart. Until next time, carry their light. Love that endures, truth that frees. What's your guess for the next story? Thank you for listening, and we'll meet again soon.